United States impacts right now. Just a huge question mark because there's a lot of factors. It's far out, and the good news is, and that's the good news, it's far out. For those in the United States, you have time to prepare. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for y'all in the northeastern and northern Caribbean because, well, look at the storm's position right now. And I hate to say it, but this could be a big disaster for this area of the world. I mean, one side of me is saying that, you know, this is absolutely beautiful, but another side of me is saying that this is absolutely terrible. And, you know, that's not much more can be said, honestly, because
Yeah.
if this moves,
It really reminds me of Isabel.
Yeah.
yeah, it does. Yeah, Isabel, but stronger in one regard. Isabel, but in a worse position, a much worse position, because we have seen storms that have taken this track, but we haven't had a storm that is this strong moving through this area, and that is what concerns me.
Correct. As I mentioned before, I think the strongest storm that has moved through the the northern Leeward Islands would be Georges of '98, I believe, and that was 155 in that same location, wasn't it?
I believe so. I think Georges and Luis were two really strong storms for this. I know.
Yeah, Luis was 145, and that made direct landfall on Barbuda. And that's a very, very significant storm. But here's something I'd like to say. Luis made that landfall with winds of 145 miles per hour. You got to tack on at least another 30, if not another 40 miles an hour on this hurricane to put it over Luis. And the wind force is proportional to the wind speed squared. And what that basically means is that your wind speed goes up and its destructive potential doubles.
Yeah.
If it doubles its wind speed, its destructive potential goes up by a factor of 4.
Practically, there's no storm.
Basically, go ahead.
Well, practically, there's no storm that could be compared to Irma. This is something that is practically not seen in many decades, and I must say it is the worst threat to those Leeward Islands since David, I must say, or even more, or even before than David. I don't know, but practically Irmas are like a record-breaking storm for those islands.
The new forecast cone being shown for the first time on our stream here. Not too much. Well, there's a little bit of change actually. A potential landfall in Cuba before curving round to the Florida Keys, and I feel, Heg, that if this storm stays somewhat clear from all of these islands, that it's going to be a massive storm for the Florida Keys or wherever else it goes in Florida. But this latest forecast cone appears to have shifted south a bit.
Yeah.
Because it only just clears the Dominican Republic now on the cone.
Yeah, but it doesn't take much. I mean, even if a storm is located in this area, it doesn't have to be over Hispaniola to cause a lot of, flooding and a lot
absolutely.
of damage.
But I'm thinking more about the storm's intensity. It might knock a bit of wind off the storm with such a close distance as what's being shown on the new cone.
It could, but it could also increase the wind radius somewhat. And also, even if the storm takes a track inland a little bit and does cross over Hispaniola and Cuba and all of that, it will still be a powerful excuse me. It will still be a powerful hurricane as it gets into this area, presuming that it does get into that area in the first place, which it probably will. And
well, every storm that's ever made landfall on the Dominican Republic as a major has gone down to Category 1 or lower.
And just as a precedent, that does include Category 5 Hurricane David.
Right, which passed over the brunt of the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola as a whole.
This one, granted, is a little bit different, but if it made a landfall of any sort, it will knock 3 categories off it.
Right, and that would mean that the United States impacts would be presumably less, but that would mean that the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, all the utilities impacts would be higher.
That's something that I may have to disagree with you on that, Hank. And that's because just how much of an oddball this storm has been playing. If it stays over the Florida Straits for any kind of period, it could probably gain another category or 2 right then and there. So
right. What I'm saying
that is a really scary region. A lot of storms like to blow up really quickly there. Rita definitely comes to mind. Also, the Labor Day hurricane 1935 immediately comes to mind as well. So just because a storm gets a couple categories knocked off of it in Hispaniola, once it enters into the Florida Straits, it's fair game.
Right, but what I was trying to say is that, even if it passes, say like that was a horrible arrow, but something like that, it would mean that the impacts for the Dominican Republic would be worse in that, not just the Dominican Republic.
Oh, absolutely, and Haiti, especially Haiti.
Yeah, because if you get it's all because of just how the country has developed over the years. Haiti, as we discussed a lot last year with Matthew, it's a very poorly developed country, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, I believe. And because of that, they have very little, their economy is so weak that what they have to do for their wood supplies, they have to deforest the entire sides of mountains for that. Now, that provides more wood for the country, but that also loosens up the soil significantly. So even if you get a small amount of rain, it could cause some huge landslides that can result in a huge amount of deaths. And that's what's the main concern for Haiti specifically. For the Dominican Republic, it's more for if the storm takes an angle such as this, or even just a little bit further north of that, it could be mainly storm surge, especially for the northern part of the country right here, just through the way that the storm is pushing water on shore. Now, as Devin mentioned earlier, that could knock off a couple categories for the storm as it moves with Hispaniola. But this area of the Atlantic right here is notorious for having storms just go off like that. And having a storm moving up into the Florida area, such as the 1935 hurricane, which was the same strength as Irma is right now in terms of wind speed, could be just catastrophic, to say the least. And I don't mean to be alarmist or anything, but it's definitely a possibility. Good news is it's about 5 days out, or more than that even. So there is time to prepare. There is time to get your evacuation plans in order. There is time to do all of this stuff that you haven't done already. So that's one shining light that there is for Florida and the entire Southeast United States. Unfortunately, that light cannot be shown for this area of the Caribbean, as I said earlier, as the storm impact is pretty much imminent.
Three things I actually want to discuss really quick. And the first one is that there is definitely a historical precedent of storms hitting the Greater Antilles and then really quickly getting their act together over the Florida Strait. If you want to take a look at, I believe it's Hurricane King of 1950, was a Category 4 landfall right in Miami, going pretty much in the same exact direction. A north-south trajectory through the Florida Strait.
Also, what I just thought of was Hurricane Cleo of 1964, which did something kind of like this, just a little bit further to the west. That was that was impeded not significantly after landfalls in Haiti, Cuba, going down and got into this area as it moved up the Florida coast in 1964. So that's another one that comes to mind.
So now what I want to get to here are the watches and warnings that are currently in effect. So there's a very long list here, and I'm sorry if I butcher the pronunciations of names of these island nations, but I'm going to try to get these as accurate as possible. So a hurricane warning is in effect for the following areas. Now, a hurricane warning means that hurricane force winds are predicted to happen within the next 36 hours, period. Greater than 50% chance of hurricane force winds in the next 36 hours. So the following areas are currently underneath a hurricane warning: Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, and Saint Martin, and St. Bartholomew, both the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vieques, and Culebra, and in the Dominican Republic from Cabo Inago to the northern border with Haiti. There are also tropical storm warnings in effect. So that's basically a hurricane warning, but there's a greater than 50% chance that you will see tropical storm force conditions in the next 36 hours. The following areas that are underneath the tropical storm warning are Guadeloupe, Dominica, and the Dominican Republic from south of Cabo Inago westward to the southern border with Haiti. Now, there's also watches in effect, and what watches mean is that there's about a 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 chance that you'll be seeing tropical storm or hurricane force conditions in the next 2 days. The following areas that are underneath a hurricane watch are Guadeloupe, Haiti from the northern border with the Dominican Republic to Limol St. Nicolas, Turks and Caicos Islands, and the southeastern Bahamas. They're all underneath hurricane watches. And a tropical storm watch is in effect from Haiti from south of Limol St. Nicolas to Port-au-Prince. So that is a summary of all the watches and warnings. Now to scroll down to storm surge expectations from this storm. And obviously being a Category 5, a Stage 9 on the cyclone destructive potential scale, this pretty much means that it's going to be creating absolutely tremendous storm surge. And this is these are some impressive numbers here. I can actually scroll now. So the northern Leeward Islands, they're expected to receive storm surge anywhere between 7 to 11 feet. The Turks and Caicos Islands and the southeastern Bahamas can expect storm surges of 15 to 20 feet, which is incredible. The northern coast of the Dominican Republic, likely because it's such a mountainous region, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. And the northern coast of Haiti and the Gulf of Ghana would be 1 to 3 feet.
And that's the first time they've put out the storm surge predictions for everywhere beyond the Puerto Rico. Yeah.
There's also the U.S. predictions, and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, except St. Croix, 7 to 11 feet. The northern coast of Puerto Rico, 3 to 5 feet, and the southern coast of Puerto Rico and St. Croix, 1 to 2 feet. I wonder why St. Croix is so low. Probably because of something to do with the angle there. But those are, think about that though, 15 to 20 feet of storm surge in the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. That is an incredible amount of water.
Again, we're looking at the satellite imagery of the last 60 minutes of Irma's visible imagery, a uber close-up here, which is just mesmerizing. And it continues to at least maintain intensity. Any signs otherwise in recent frames, guys, that you've picked up on? Anything at all to tell us that it's either strengthening or weakening? Hopefully weakening.
I can't find any. I mean, the western eye wall is it's a little less defined on conventional satellite than the eastern eye wall. But apart from that, I mean, there's just nothing really that's getting it over. In fact, in recent frames, it looks like the western eye wall is beginning to get its act back together and be comparable to the eastern eye wall, which
wow,
we're unsure. That basically means that it's not losing any strength. The eye looks to be maintaining temperature. The outflow is perfect. Really, right now, that looks to be impeding its strength. The only thing right now that could eventually help to decrease Irma's strength could be an eye wall replacement cycle. And that would just increase the wind radius, which would mean that areas farther away from the hurricane would get worse impacts than what they would have had if the storm would just have a single eye wall. And that would also mean that the winds would die down, which would be good news. But then again, once you get past 160 miles an hour, it's very difficult to avoid, how you say, total damage, in all honesty. And anything past then really would just simply be just more total damage over a wider area. That's really the main reason why the San Francisco hurricane wind scale stops at Category 5 and doesn't go any higher. But anyways, yeah, nothing I can see that could be impeding strength within the next.
yeah.
The eye wall replacement cycle is the only thing that could weaken Irma, but other than that, there's nothing actually. Irma is in a complete great place to keep intensifying, even that is 185 miles per hour hurricane. This is just concerning, and of course, it is the start of a potential disaster.
I don't know if, Hank, you want to start up some other activities that we often look at and take a look at some of the atmospheric conditions or models or anything you want?
Well, why not? Let's just go ahead and take a quick look at the models.
Uh-oh.
Some of which may be a little bit, say, bonkers. Others will be, I guess, a bit more realistic. So let's start out with everybody's favorite model, the GFS. And just to put all side history behind this, you can see that because this is the 12Z run. 18Z is coming out right now and is only up 6 hours, so that's why I'm not showing it to you guys. We can see Irma moving through the Turks and Caicos, starting close to Cuba, then taking a sharp north turn. Looks like it just missed the Florida landfall, but don't pay attention to that. Bombing it out probably unrealistically, so don't pay attention to the 896 millibars.
Yeah.
I was going to warn you.
Health any good?
Yeah, I'm just going to warn you that this is nothing compared to what some other models are spinning out. All of which are probably unrealistic. And what it does is it actually curves it a little bit in, makes an unusual landfall near Savannah, which is something you don't normally see. You can also see what is Jose.
And then Jose does a U-turn.
Yeah, but also know how far out this is. So
yeah,
that's
true.
why a little bit iffy. And for 13L, GFS isn't very optimistic.
Yeah, hardly anything has never been optimistic, though, has it?
Not really. And then the European model is more optimistic with 13L showing it become a tropical storm. By the way, the next name is Katia, or Katia, or however you pronounce it. Meanwhile, with Irma, it moves it through Cuba and then curves it north later than a GFS and makes it have a landfall near Naples.
Oh, wow.
Right up the Florida Peninsula.
And that, again, looks like a big landfall.
Yeah, that doesn't look good at all. And then just going to the wind parameter, that's probably a Category 4 landfall.
Wow.
In the Naples area. by Monday morning, according to this model. Again, this is just one model solution, not a forecast by any means. The CMC model is showing that, if we can just get all these
Let's not even
hours.
talk about the CMC.
Well, right, it's decent at track though. It's horrible at Genesis though. Showing that Irma is it's showing it a lot weaker than it's going to be. I'm just going to point that out. Puts it in a little bit farther south, briefly emerges it into the Caribbean, actually, and then curves it north a lot later, having a landfall pretty close to Apalachicola, and then,
something like that.
Jose.
Yeah, some dinging going on. Who's doing that? We'll have to fade that out until it stops anyway. But we're looking at the models there. I think it stopped. Go ahead.
Then it also brings Jose a little bit farther west. Nothing really close to the Bahamas or anything, but certainly close enough that you will have some impacts from it. But regardless, indirect impacts, excuse me. The NavGem model is showing that. Apologies that the hours are taking a while to load. My internet at my new HQ isn't the best. So it's showing that Irma will gradually move a lot farther north than the rest of the models, actually moving right through the Bahamas, and then curving it north earlier, completely missing Florida, but has a big landfall in South Carolina near the border with Georgia. Meanwhile, Jose just kind of meanders out in the middle of nowhere, really. Well, not the middle of nowhere, kind of close to the Bahamas. Close.
I think we're now joined by Strat, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, hello.
Strat joins us from the northeast, and what are your thoughts on Irma?
It obviously is already looking like it'll be a devastating storm. Tracks are kind of uncertain more than a couple days out. I will notice that it's been trending westward rather than west-northwest, though.
Oh, yes. And that could lead to more effects and this possible, not a George's type scenario, but, well, more closer to those islands.
I will say that radar makes it look like it's starting to move west-northwest a little bit, but
all right. We'll take a look at that in a moment.
It's just a wobble because of the EWRC that could be impending. We really don't know. But it does look like a trend is starting to go west-northwest. And also, not really to cut into a bunch of people, but I would say in the next 15 minutes or so, we should be getting a plane passing through the northwestern eyewall storm.
Yes, Strat has been on top of that, and I'm sure both of you will give us updates on that. But let's take a look at the HWRF model for the time being. Hank?
Yeah, so do me a favor really quickly. Don't pay attention to the pressure, or just pay attention to the track, honestly. HWRF wants to bring it through the northern Leeward Islands, a little bit farther north than the rest of the models, through the Turks and Caicos, landfall in Cuba, and then slows it down as it curves north, and it looks like this is where the model ends. But according to this, it looks like it would curve north and potentially have a landfall near the Tampa area, which would not be good in any regard. And you can see at the very rightmost side of your screen, you can see Jose moving uncomfortably close to the Leeward Islands just after Irma had hit that area. And the H1 model, which has been by far the most bullish model for this storm, please do not pay attention to the pressure, is showing that Irma will move through the northernmost Leeward Islands and avoid the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, the center of it at least. The effects will not, for sure. And move through the Turks and Caicos, get close to Cuba, ignore the pressure, and just barely hit Florida. But then again, this is also 5 days out, so nothing to take for reality. As Devin mentioned earlier, there's a recon flight that is moving into Irma right now, should move and is beginning to get into the southeast quadrant of the eye wall, excuse me, and we will see if it has intensified or not. and it probably has, unfortunately. We're just looking at imagery alone, but we'll see with this. Really quickly, though, just to update you on what's going on outside of the Atlantic. Spoiler alert, not much.
Not much.
Just the remnants of which might be coming back according to this, but that's all. Let's see, invest in the Western Pacific that might try to go on to become something later on. I don't know. But yeah, the Atlantic really is the main show right now, where we have, of course, Irma, Jose, and Tropical Depression 13, which could go on to become a tropical storm and potentially gain the name Katia or Katia or however you pronounce it. Regardless, both 13 and, of course, Irma are having imminent threats to land and should be monitored closely, especially Irma, for quite obvious reasons. But really quickly, just, I guess, a quick look at the intensity guidance, showing a general downward trend, but it's really not that much weaker. I mean, yes, it's a Category 4, but it honestly doesn't matter because winds of that strength will be highly destructive in any regard. It doesn't matter what type of structure you have on. It's going to sustain some damage if you have winds of Category 4 or 5 strength. This is out to 5 days. The rest of this is just a huge blur. For anybody who's curious about impacts outside of Florida, further up in the United States, maybe towards the Carolinas, maybe even New England, it's still too early to say. You might or might not have some impacts from this hurricane.
Hate to cut in front of you right here, Hank, but the latest recon update has gotten through the southeastern eye wall here, and it's showing at least 120 knot 10-second gusts going through the southeastern eye, which is obviously the weakest part of the storm. So we're taking a look and seeing, boy, potentially Category 4 winds in the southeastern part of the eye wall.
And again, we're looking at the latest imagery of Irma's eye. Let's see if we can get that zoomed out, and so that we can get the grand picture. There it is. That's how it looks zoomed out fully from that perspective of GOES 16 as it gets dark over there, and you can see how it's continuing to draw ever nearer to Guadeloupe, which, whilst it won't get the worst effects of the storm, it is still presently the closest island to the storm, and will be for a few more hours before it goes off towards the northwest and affects the other islands, and Antigua and Barbuda in particular are of the main concern right now. Well, I don't know where you guys want to go next, but if anyone's got any questions for us, you can send your questions in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It will hopefully tag us and it will light up nicely for me.
Yeah, someone asked how the wind shear looks like right now, so does anyone have that up?
Okay, it's not, just, let you guys know, it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, I was actually just about to comment on that. Due to Irma's irregularity, it creates its own weather. So basically, it says, "Oh, wind shear? That's cute."
Well,
so,
yeah, but
yeah, that's not going to be an issue here.
Yeah, and that's typical with storms of Irma's strength. They normally they have these ridges above them that intensify as the storm itself intensifies, and that can in itself create its own wind shear that surrounds the storm. So it may look like, if you're looking at shear graphics, it may look like the storm is heading into some shear, but in reality, the shear is moving with it. So the shear in the actual area will be negligible, honestly, and it really won't be in the coming days. Sea surface temperatures are not an issue. I think that's quite clear. You don't even have to look at graphics to figure that out. I mean, there's really only
29.5 degrees centigrade plus all the way to go.
Yeah, I have a shear map as I can share this.
The shear map shows that it's pretty low, actually.
Yeah, there's
Over-
like no shear around the storm, and as Devin said, it's kind of creating its own area that has low shear around it as well.
And anybody that has seen Atlantic-type annular systems like this before, this should come as absolutely no surprise.
Hate to tell you, Strat, your screen isn't working for me.
Yeah, I was about to say, Strat, your screen shares.
For some reason, it's showing a black screen with a cursor on it. How annoying is that?
So here's what Strat was trying to show. The shuriken icon is Irma, and as you can see, there's this area of wind shear around the storm. But if you put this in the animation, which I won't do because it's quite a tedious task for right now, it shows that it moves with the storm. So all of this right here is moving towards the west and the west-northwest. So wind shear for Irma, not an issue at all. Even all of this out here won't be an issue for the storm, as remember, all this moves. It's not just it doesn't just stay there. Yeah. It works as a bunch of gears in motion, and this is one gear that'll eventually kick out, and Irma probably will not get any impacts from this. Let's see, Recon has not updated just yet, but I would imagine that they would be getting into the IRAD around now and getting a center fix and all that. Yes, the winds are only Cat 4 at the flight level and at the 10-second time frame, but keep in mind that the southeast quadrant of the storm is normally one of the weaker ones, if not the weakest of the storm. The northeast quadrant is normally the strongest of the storm, so don't be fooled by that and think, oh, the storm's rapidly weakening, because it more than likely is not.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you guys know there's a second recon heading out to Irma right now as well.
Yeah, there is. And
is that an upper level or lower level?
It doesn't say yet. I'll tell you guys when it is.
If it doesn't say, it's going to be a lower level storm, because they'll tell you if it's an upper level mission.
Yeah, it'll tell you if it's upper level or training, and it's more likely to be lower level considering the storm's overall nature. So,
I will say though, I'm taking a look at the latest radar imagery here, and boy, that second eye wall is really trying to form. If you take a look on the northern side, it's weak, but the southern side's definitely got some merit to it. And you know, when Recon goes through the storm northeast to southwest, you should definitely see two distinct peaks. That'll probably be about an hour 45, hour 55 minutes from now.
Unfortunately, I was going to screen share something, but my ability has been I can't do it right now for whatever reason. I'll basically just describe to you what I'm looking at. Right now, what I'm basically looking at is kind of off topic, but not really. But what I'm looking at is the actual ace that the storm is producing. It's already up to 27. Formed, let's see, 6 days ago. So that's remarkable to have that much.
Long way from Ivan.
Yeah, it's a long way from Ivan. But it could easily be up there with some of the top contenders if these intensity guys.
Absolutely, you definitely will have to put it up there with top contenders like Hurricane Matthew of last year.
Yeah, Matthew produced 51 units, I believe, and this one's already at 27.
I'd only produced 51 units?
What I calculated.
Gosh, that thing was a Cat 3 for forever.
Which one are we talking about now?
Matthew.
Matthew, it was only 50, low 50s.
Surprised me, because that was a Cat 4 forever.
And briefly a Cat 5.
Cesar, what are your thoughts?
Well, in the middle of this argument between Hank and Devon about if Matthew was a category 4, category 5,
that argument.
I'm agree that Matthew was a category
Let's get back
5,
on
but just
topic
the
here.
period of time between the advisories. I mean, the Raycon left leave the storm when it in 5 stages. I don't know. But for me, it was a category 5 hurricane. Or just a...
Recon has not yet updated.
Alright, so that's mainly what we're waiting for right now, isn't it?
Recon won't update until 59. I mean 49.
Which is in about 2 minutes. So
now, whilst you were talking for a long time earlier, we got quite a few questions which we neglected, so we need to go and get those. Is Irma an annular cyclone? Question.
Has the characteristic, I mean, sort of. It does have some outer spiral bands that are kind of going against its annularity, but it also has the overall nature of one. That being that it's very close to its MPI value, its maximum potential intensity, which, for those curious, is the theoretical limit to how strong the storm can get based on the environment around it.
Yeah. I'm really sorry to interrupt, Hank. The recon just came in if you want to pull that up, the new recon data.
Okay, and I can't screen share, but they did get pressure in. The minimum they found was 916. So the drop will probably be around 918 or 919.
Really?
So the storm
And that makes sense. And they got northwestern eyewall presentation, 10-second gusts of 155 knots. So put that down as 175 miles an hour. And since the northeastern eyewall is stronger, yeah, I don't see any reason for them to decrease the intensity from 185.
There's also Cat 5 winds on the southwest eyewall as well.
They didn't go through the southwest eyewall.
I don't know if they've gone through the southwest eyewall yet.
It looks like it on, or no, is that southeast or southwest? I'm being stupid.
That's the southeastern eyewall.
All right.
Alright, we had plenty of other questions as well. Why is the wind shear so low around Irma?
You cut right out, Nathan.
The question was,
he's
why
asking why
is the
the
wind
wind's
shear so low around Irma?
That can be explained because of basically how hurricanes work. So hurricanes basically work like a heat engine. You need to have inflow, you need to have outflow. The inflow of the hurricane is right up against the ground, and it's going to go counterclockwise, just like your normal low would. And the hurricane's outflow is going to be at the upper levels, the top upper levels, and it's going to move around. Hank alluded to the ridge above the storm that's building. I really don't like that term, but that's really what it is a ridge above the ridge, a high pressure-ish thing. An anticyclone, that's the best word. The anticyclone above the storm is improving. And the stronger the storm is, the stronger this anticyclone is. And this upper level anticyclone over the storm will literally create, will literally just push all wind shear aside. And a hurricane this strong would just control the environment around it rather than the environment controlling it. So when storms get this strong, yes, they are very sensitive things. They're very sensitive to eyewall replacement cycles. They're very sensitive to sea surface temperature changes. They're very sensitive to land proximity. But also, they basically push any kind of wind shear and also even dry air away from the storm, simply because of how strong the anticyclone above the storm is. And that anticyclone will go 15, 20 miles into the atmosphere. So a storm like Irma is extremely impressive. Unbelievable.
really
All right. I had something else I was going to say though. It's just completely escaped me.
completely lost
Oh
my
yes,
thought.
it was another question. What has been a very popular question recently, is about this model run, these models, and why they turned the storm abruptly north around Florida. And we've already discussed that sort of already, but do you want to anyone elaborate again?
Oh,
That's
so
that's
overall,
because of the
overall thing
really weird steering patterns that are expected to come about with this storm.
basically what's going to happen is if I could get my screen share up, which for some reason is not allowing me to, but I'm just going to try and paint a mental picture in your heads. You have a ridge to the north of Irma that's steering it to the west right now. You have a ridge over the Rockies of the United States that's going to push southeast towards Texas. And there's a trough currently over the Ohio Valley that's going to kick out, and behind it there's going to be what we call an anticyclonic wave break, which is just a fancy term for a ridge coming in behind a trough and leaving in some sort of a short wave type pattern in behind it. So what that's going to do is with these two ridges, with these three ridges now, you're going to have the storm. It can't go and keep going to the Gulf of Mexico. What's going to have to do is going to have to be diverted towards the north. It just so happens that Florida is likely to be where the storm is going to turn north. Again, it's 5 days out, but that's just now.
And people are asking about damage potential for Florida. It's always too early to say, and this.
I'm not one to estimate damage right now, but
yeah, well, gee.
maybe not Harvey bad, but it could be deadlier than Harvey certainly. But it's still again.
If it hits Miami, it will be Harvey bad. It will be worse than Harvey.
Won't, but at this point, depends on where that turn occurs. That's crucial for the storm's. Well, what's the word? It's crucial for this amount of damage that the storm is going to cause. If it turns north east of Florida, it's probably going to not be as bad as if it would turn north over Florida. That's not counting impacts farther north that could potentially happen, which are even farther out, who are in, say, the Carolinas, New England, any other part of the eastern United States, or even into the eastern Gulf for states excluding Florida. It's still way too far out to determine exactly where the storm is going to go past that point.
Any place will receive catastrophic damage from this hurricane because it has an incredible intensity. So I think there's no reason for me to compare it to other storms damages because this practically the intensity, it doesn't really fit with the damages that can do, but of course Irma has a lot of potential to do catastrophic damages in all the way it's moving. So this is just I don't even know what to say. Just this is completely a concerning situation.
Yeah, it's really just a storm like this just I just can't stop thinking about it. I mean, storm that made me this nervous was Harvey, but I guess that's not the best comparison. But I mean, basically what we're trying to say is that this storm means business, and if you're in the path of it, get prepared. And if you're in the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, anywhere in the hurricane warnings areas, which we talked about earlier, reiterate during the next hour. But if you're in the hurricane warning area, be prepared. And if you're not prepared, then just hunker down and hopefully you will get unscathed as if it would be better than if it would.
Indeed. Hurricane warnings are in effect for large parts of the Caribbean. We'll get a live look at what it looks like in Anguilla in the next hour. And that is one of the many places in the hurricane warning zone of this Category 5, 185 miles an hour. Whether it's still that intensity, well, we're going to find out from the recon planes who are in the storm doing their level duty right now. And it's going to be interesting to see what they find. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more shortly. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.co.uk at your service at any time. You can also find us on YouTube, the channel, search Force 13, all in text, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also find us on Facebook at Force 13, and it's at Force 13 on Twitter, that's the handle to contact us there. You can also add Fool13 on Skype, that's FOOL13, and add extension 9094 on Discord for tropical weather chat. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. A live look from Force 13 HQ this evening, a pretty clear, well not clear, but cloudy and moonlit night here at the moment, it would appear. My name's Nathan Foy, I'm joined by everyone on the Force 13 team, or elements of the Force 13 team, and many people have been and will come later. Here's the latest with Hurricane Irma. If you missed the last hour, you missed the fantastic but terrible imagery of the storm's eye and how magnificent the eye looks. It looked in the late visible imagery. Its night has now just about fallen over the storm at this time, and let me fade back in our team, consisting this hour of Hank, Isaac, Devon, and Strat. And since Isaac has just joined us, let's let him talk first.
Well, I just came off of school and I was monitoring this system pretty much all day. I couldn't get my mind off of it, and exactly what I didn't want to happen is sadly happening with this storm. I mean, it's like, I mean, if you're not prepared for this thing already, it's pretty much nearly too late right now if you're in the Lesser Antilles. Make sure you're in obviously in a steady, in like a well-built shelter, because if you're in a wooden house, I'm afraid it's probably going to be either nearly or completely gone if this thing comes near you. But basically, the storm is really, really intense and really bad, and I believe it's still trying to strengthen unless it's stopped right now.
Well, that's what we're going to be finding out in this hour as recon go through. Based on what we already saw from the recon estimates, we've put our estimate down to 920 millibars at the top of the hour. The latest distance reports are the following: 107 miles northeast of Guadeloupe, 118 miles east of Antigua, 124 miles east-southeast of Barbuda. So by that reckoning, Devon and everyone, tropical storm force winds should be beginning very soon, if not already, on those 3 islands.
Tropical storm force wind should have begun an hour ago on those islands.
Okay. Well, yeah.
The hurricane force winds will probably be bearing down on them in a few hours. The hurricane force wind field with this storm is large compared to its tropical storm force wind field. That is something that should be said. Even though Irma is not particularly a large hurricane, it still covers a lot of ground. And I'm just really worried about the little island of Barbuda there. I mean, it looks like this storm's going to go either near it or directly over it.
Yeah, and I just pulled up. Tropical storm force winds have arrived on some of the islands as of 5.
Yeah. And again, if you haven't prepared for this thing already, it's pretty much nearly too late to, and you gotta just hunker it down, and hopefully you'll get through it. I mean, it's gonna be one heck of a ride, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and as Devin was saying, tropical storm force winds have arrived on some of the islands. Here's Guadeloupe right there. You can see it's within the. If I scroll down a little bit, you'll see that's within the ledger of tropical storm force winds. That's at least 39 miles an hour, so it qualifies.
Man.
Well, I'm really having difficulty trying to figure out what screen to go to here. I'm looking at radar, trying to look at satellite.
Well, first of all, whilst you're on the Hurricane Center's website, Strat, do you want to talk us through the watches and warnings right now?
Talk us through the warnings?
All warnings, if possible.
Alright, let me find it right here. Hurricane warning is in effect for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, sorry if I'm butchering stuff, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, Saint Martin, St. Martin, and St. Bartholomew, British Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vcase, and Culebra, Dominican Republic from Cabo Engano to the northern border with Haiti are all under hurricane warnings. Watches are in effect for Guadeloupe, Haiti from the northern border with Dominican Republic to Les Moles St. Nicholas, Turks and Caicos Islands and southeastern Bahamas are under hurricane watch. Tropical storm warnings in effect for Guadeloupe, Dominica, Dominican Republic from south of Cabo and Ghana westward to the southern border with Haiti. So all the Dominican Republic's under a hurricane watch warning or tropical storm warning. And a tropical storm watch is in effect for Haiti south of Les Moles St. Nicolas to Port-au-Prince, which is most of Haiti.
And remember that hurricane warning, there's about a 50-50 shot that you'll get hurricane warning, or excuse me, hurricane in 6 hours, and tropical storm warning, except instead of hurricane conditions, you'll get storm conditions. And tropical storm and hurricane watches mean that tropical storm conditions are expected within 48 to 60 hours, and that's about a 25% chance of that happening.
Yeah, what I've been trying to do just now is trying to get a live look of what Anguilla looks like. Unfortunately, I can't bring it to you right now due to my poor connection for some reason. It's all poor connections everywhere this evening, and it's nothing to do with the storm. I don't know what it is. I can only tell you what it looks like, and it doesn't look too inclement there yet. You could see the waves washing up along the shore, but nothing really too drastic. Of course, it's not the first place that's going to get hit, but it will be in the impact zone in the early hours of tomorrow morning, and possibly a direct hit too. What should we look at next? I know that I sort of cut off Devon a little bit before. He's not here anymore. Okay. Well, we'll move on to something else. But Strat playing around with the graphics there anyway.
I just posted an image in the room, so if you guys want to share it, go ahead. But it's one of the last images of Irma we're gonna see today before the sun fully goes down over it within the next few minutes.
There it is right here.
Yeah, we did show earlier on the fantastic loop of what it looked like. We might be able to still get that up on the screen as well. Let's see if we can get that.
If not, I could just use my image because I enhanced it a little bit so you could see a little bit better.
That's how the storm looked when it was getting dark. The last hour of visible imagery before it got dark. If we could possibly make it much bigger on the screen and get a closer up on that eye. Well, there it is anyway.
Man. I know this third recon found a pressure of 920.
I'm not sure it was Recon that found a pressure of 920. That's just the estimate that we went with at the top of the hour, but is that true as well?
No, if you go to my screen
I'm not
share,
too
drop
certain.
zone got 920 millibars.
It did? Okay.
Okay.
So what's the lowest pressure they've got now? Is that the lowest pressure?
Yeah, 920 is the
not-
lowest drop zone, although I'm pretty sure they got a little bit deeper.
Good guess
earlier
on the estimate then.
They always get deeper than the drop zone. They actually got 916 millibars with the actual thing, but the drop zone observes 920.
Does the 916 count?
The drop zone reserve. Okay. That's because the chances of interference with the actual observations are a lot higher than
Right. So we can only really trust that 920.
Take that as you will, but if
Yeah, I think we've been
Yeah,
losing your
it
signal
should-
a bit.
Right now, Recon's probably going to go west and then south, and then go through a swoop from the southwest to northeast eye wall. So that's what we're going to be waiting for right now. That'll be probably 45 minutes or so.
And again, like I've said, I guess we'll just keep saying this in case we're getting new viewers from the islands. Pretty much at this point, if you haven't done your preparations right now, it's pretty much too late. I believe some of the islands are already starting to get trouble with storm force winds. So pretty much, if you haven't done your preparations right now, all I could do is hunker down and hope for the best, because it's going to be a scary ride for you tonight.
Well, people have had days to prepare for this. There's really no excuse on these hurricane-warned islands. because
Yeah.
the threat has been very real for a very long time. And I wonder what the storm's looking like on the latest frames, and the northern eye wall looking very strong indeed. And I'm about to show this to everyone in a moment, if we can get this on the screen. Take a look at this.
Yeah, and Gabriel Anderson asked what changed in the past day to where no one thought it was going to become on Cat 5, or was it just the water? Like, what factors played in?
Sorry, say that again?
Someone in chat asked, like, what happened in the past day to where nobody thought it'd be a strong Category 5 hurricane to where it is today?
Well, I mean, intensification like this was unexpected. It was intensifying rather rapidly last night, so really, if you're in the hurricane warning area, you should always be prepared for the worst. It doesn't matter if it's not even a hurricane or something of Irma's scale. It doesn't just treat it like it's going to be, a really bad storm.
The real point of weakness in the hurricane right now would be in the southwest.
And even the... Oh, wait, that's the southeast side. Never mind. I was going to say southwest will probably show at least strong Cat 4 winds as well.
And the latest eye temperature, according to GOES 16, is 20 Celsius.
What was that, 5 degrees Celsius warmer than earlier?
Warmer than whenever I last checked, which was a while ago now. I can't remember how long ago. A few hours. But that's satellite derived. What Recon must be getting temperature readings too.
Let me see if I can grab
And they'll probably get higher, because they almost always do.
Yes, they did get temperature reading. They found in the eye was 20 Celsius.
So the satellite appears to be correct. Well, 20 Celsius, I mean, I would have thought it would have been a bit more than that, given its actual intensity.
Well, I mean, to what I can see, it looks about. Your observations look about accurate, according to this.
Yeah, I'm
okay.
looking at the Recon observation. It does show around 20 degrees Celsius.
We'll keep monitoring that, of course. It's one of many indicators that we look at for intensity. Usually it's more applicable when Recon aren't there that we take a look at all of the cloud top temperatures, when Recon are there and you've got surface observations and flight observations, the satellite estimates take a back seat.
Yeah.
But right now, the edge of the storm and the cloudiness associated with it over some of the islands already. And do you think there'll be significant rainfall there yet? Well, we've got the radar, haven't we? Who's got the radar?
Rainfall, one second. Let me actually, I have a link.
Someone can just post the link to the radar in our chat and I'll pull it up.
I got it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so if I can just pull up my screen share there. So,
mine for you.
Yeah, we got, here, Strat, I got it.
Oh, yes.
Right now. That's frustrating. So as you can see, okay. Well, you can see that the eye wall is looking rather well defined, and it looks like it's trying to get a secondary eye wall going. Not fully closed off yet. Now that is indicative of an eye wall replacement cycle, which can help weaken the fastest wind speed, but it can also help to increase the wind field. So that would mean that would mean not as bad, still terrible winds, but not as bad for, say, Antigua, Barbuda, all those islands in that area. But that would mean the winds would be worse for areas like Guadeloupe, Dominica, and islands in that general area.
Now, you look at this imagery, Hank, and it would appear that the eye, as depicted on the radar, is only just as big as Antigua, whereas you look on the satellite image and the eye looks pretty much twice as big as Antigua.
Yeah, that's could easily just be some sort of, I guess, dang it. That could easily just be some sort of perspective error. And perspective error on the radar's part.
Right.
And that is a little interesting. It does look a lot smaller on radar than it does on satellite. But then again, that's what you normally expect from tropical cyclones, and not really to the scale. So that's interesting. I just didn't really think about that. So that's one thing, I guess.
It's just something I noticed. That, I mean, maybe it's something to do with the stadium effect of the eye, where you sort of have the lower parts of the eye near the eye wall still having some rainfall in it or something. I don't know.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It could also just use perspective error on the radar's part, or maybe even on the viewer's part. That is interesting, though. But we get the general picture here, and that is that the storm is moving in a general westward direction right towards the islands, and that there could be an imminent eye wall placement cycle coming in, which, by the way, is probably like the 10th one it's done in its whole lifetime. It's done a lot. That's why the wind speed and pressure ratio is so off. Normally, with storms of wind speeds of 185 miles an hour in the Atlantic, have pressures in the 890s or 880s. This one's in the 920s, and that's just due to all these hour replacement cycles that's been happening. That's been just messing up the storm structure. And normally, for a storm in this position, with that type of winds, I would say the pressure would probably be around 895. So that's something that is interesting, to say the least. Just wanted to.
I guess it's just that gap in the cloud tops that's probably letting it down a bit.
Sorry, Nathan, you cut out really quick.
Just the gap in the cloud tops is probably letting it down a bit.
Potentially. Again, it could be a combination of a whole bunch of things, really.
It does look very good, though.
Yeah. Really quickly, I just want to bring up this graphic, which would help determine when the tropical storm force winds would arrive. For the Lesser Antilles and Leeward Islands, it should be at the latest Tuesday at 8 p.m., if not already happening. Let's just open this a new tab and zoom in a little bit. So then for the further west in the Leeward Islands, towards, say, St. Croix, St. John's, all that, I think that's an island. That would be overnight. Close towards the Virgin Islands, tomorrow morning, Puerto Rico, tomorrow afternoon, westernmost Puerto Rico tomorrow night, and then so on and so forth. And as you can see, for Florida specifically, again, this is an experimental graphic, but what it is showing is that the tropical storm force winds would not arrive in the state until Saturday. So that's something good if you're curious about Florida impacts.
Yeah, we were definitely thinking. Well, they say during the day on Saturday. I think the tropical storm force winds probably won't be till evening on Saturday, but could be sooner.
Yeah. Again, you got a lot of time to prepare if you haven't already. If you're living in Florida, if you're living in the hurricane warning area, you should be prepared by now. And if you're not, then, well, just hope for the best. Again,
if you're not prepared, you've had ample warning.
That's also true. Not the only system in the Atlantic. We also have Tropical Storm Jose, which earlier today should just move out in the Central Atlantic. Unfortunately, the Leeward Islands are in the cone again. And this
again. First storm's not even passed.
Yeah, it's supposed to peak at 110 miles an hour, which probably means it's going to peak at a major. We also have Tropical Depression 13 in the Bay of Campeche. For those of you in Texas who are worried about more rain, it's not going to happen. This is more than likely going to move south and impact the Veracruz area as a tropical storm. If it does become a tropical storm, which it's probably going to,
Could I
it will
just ask about Texas and whether
Speak.
the how it's going over there after Harvey?
Well, we're still well, really quickly, we're still obviously rebuilding after it, and the schools over here are kind enough to let the poor people who have no schools left anymore, go over here. Relief is working really good. In terms of weather-wise, over here we're getting some scattered showers.
Is flooding
I
still
believe
occurring anywhere?
I'm not too certain on that.
I don't think it's pretty much done for Houston right now. Thankfully.
Yeah, but over here I'm still getting some scattered summer showers, pretty much nearly all this weekend, I think, but should be dying down, I think, mid this week. But anyways, that's really it for Texas. So, Irma.
Now on the stream, we're looking at water vapor imagery, 1 minute imagery of Irma slowly moving towards sort of just north of west. And if you're looking on the stream, as I know Hank is right now, what are your thoughts on that?
That eye is impressive.
Oh yeah.
Just seeing how much contrast there is compared to the eye wall. That's something about hurricanes that's always just been just absolutely breathtaking, in my opinion.
Wonder if we could get a zoom out on that and see what the environment around it looks like. Might take a little while for all that to load. Bit dry off towards the northwest. And
yeah,
southwest.
let me just try at least to pull up Go 16 imagery.
Yours will be better than mine.
Just try to get a glimpse at it. It's probably gonna take a while to load. Is my screen showing up?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the current water vapor imagery. If it will load, it will take some time. If we can just come on. Okay. So this is the current water vapor imagery overall. As you can see, here's One second. There's this one frame that's okay. So here's Irma right here, obviously. Here we can kind of get a pretty good glimpse at the upper level dynamics, and there is a very weak upper level low near Haiti and Jamaica right now that's moving towards the northwest. That won't really have an influence on Irma because of the ridge to the north of it that's steering it for the west initially. So this won't really be an issue for the storm. It is imparting some northerly shear right here. That's being influenced by this upper level low for 1 and the anticyclone over Irma for 2. And this will not impact Irma because, as we mentioned earlier, the shear moves with the system. That's just how hurricanes of Irma strength work. And moving over towards Florida, you can't really see much. You can see a lot of wind shear being induced from the outflow from Tropical Depression 13, and 2 from the trough that is digging in over the Ohio Valley that is starting to impart some of the overall setup that we will see for Irma in the long term. And in fact, if we just zoom out even more here, we could see this, I guess, in a pretty broad view once this whole thing starts to load. And okay, 1 second. Okay, so here's the broad scale view. Here's Irma. Here's 13 if you care, and you can't really see ridges too well in here, especially for the mid levels. But there's one in this area right here. I can guarantee you that, and that's what's steering Irma towards the west right now. There's this trough digging into the Ohio Valley that should be kicking out over New England later this week, and should have a ridge that's currently located over this area, so southeast into the Texas area, and up here we'll have another trough that will come in right on the heels of this one up here in Canada, and then another ridge behind that will try and kick that out and have a whole anticyclonic wave break go on with this whole scenario up here. And what that will do is it will put 3 ridges to steer Irma. One over
oh dear.
Yeah, the one over Texas, the one over the Atlantic, and the one over the Ohio Valley. All 3 of them will help to push Irma, the vacant halt, its gain in longitude, and instead it will gain latitude. So basically what I'm saying is they'll take a northward turn, and that northward turn could be anywhere near the Florida area, really. Could be west, could be east, it could be over Florida. And over Florida would be the worst case scenario. And if the rage over the Ohio Valley kicks out and a trough behind it comes in, it could help steer Irma up the East Coast. But again, that's pretty far out, so I don't want to cause alarm or anything.
Yeah.
That could be a potential scenario further on down the line.
Devon doesn't think so, I don't think.
And, sorry, say that again?
I don't think Devon thought that would be an option.
Well, at this point, anything's an option, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they could still go north of it.
But at the moment, I do think that it could wind up into one of the Greater Antilles, and that would mean it'd be weaker, but it still could be Category 3 when it reaches Florida, but there's still the potential it could be Category 5 when it gets there, you know. It's just, that is just, and it's and bigger than Andrew as well, I would probably think.
Yeah, if it was to hit when it was able to maintain in this intensity, it would be bigger than Andrew, because I believe geez, I had a big voice crack there. Andrew made landfall as a strong Category 4 hurricane, and peaked as Category 5 in the Bahamas.
Well, they upgraded it to a 5 afterwards, didn't they? It took them 13 years to upgrade it to Category 5 at landfall.
10 years.
Was it?
Well, regardless, just still, if it was able to maintain its intensity, although I could see it weaken and like wax and wane throughout the whole entire journey, I'd expect it to, if it was to hit Miami or southern Florida, this would be worse than Andrew.
Yeah, but it would really, I mean, go ahead.
Sorry, me on my part, you cut out, so.
Well, I'll just say that the biggest thing about storms of this intensity and the very strongest of the storms is that just a 10-mile difference in where the landfall point is could mean absolutely everything, as Andrew proved. So the point is really that we can't say with any amount of certainty where exactly this storm's worst effects will be until a matter of hours before it actually happens.
Yeah,
that's the scary thing.
Because look at Harvey, for example. Harvey was supposed to be making landfall in Corpus Christi, but a short jog to the north basically saved the city from heavy damages.
And I don't. You also got to take into account the EWRC, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, it wasn't really a short wobble. It gradually took a trek. Wobbles don't encompass that much area comparative to the storm's area where it was supposed to hit. So it was just the factor steering it strengthened.
Oh yeah,
regardless, overall, it was pretty. Regardless, the whole setup with Harvey was just, it didn't really matter where it was going to make landfall. It was going to be catastrophic no matter what, really. And
but it was basically, the flooding was just enough anyway.
Yeah, as if the flooding wasn't enough, you also had a Cat 4 landfall on top of that. And my mother's hometown was pretty much destroyed. So let's moving on back to the situation at hand. Really quickly, for those viewers who just tuned in, I just want to reiterate the warnings really quickly, and not to cut off abruptly for anything. But so these are the warnings in effect. Hurricane warning, which means that hurricane conditions are expected anywhere within the warning area within 36 hours, and there's a 50% chance of that happening. So that is in effect for Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, and St. Martin, as well as St. Martin, St. Bartholomew, the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vieques, Quebra, as well as the Dominican Republic from Cabo and Gano to the northern border with Haiti. So that's where the hurricane warning is in effect for. Hurricane watch, which means that hurricane conditions are possible anywhere within the watch area within 48 hours to 60 hours, and that there's at least 25 to 30% chance of that happening. That is in effect for Guadeloupe, Haiti, from the northern border with the Dominican Republic to Le Mole San Nicolas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the southeastern Bahamas. Tropical storm warning, which is basically the same thing as a hurricane warning, but instead of hurricane conditions, tropical storm conditions. That is in effect for Guadeloupe, Dominica, as well as the Dominican Republic from south of the Cabo Langado westward to the southern border with Haiti. Tropical storm watch, which is the same thing as a hurricane watch, but instead of hurricane conditions, it's tropical storm conditions. That is in effect from Haiti, from south of the Mole Saint Nicolas to Port-au-Prince. And if you're not really geographically keen, here is just a little map with the cone that explains pretty well with the key down here.
Yeah, and I want to also read out the wind probabilities. This is all for hurricane force winds, okay? Guadeloupe 2%, Antigua 64, Barbuda 97, St. Kitts and Nevis 53, St. Martin 94, St. Croix 29, St. Thomas 80, Vieques 48, San Juan 50, 6 in Santo Domingo, 2 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. It's 2 in Montego Bay, believe it or not, as well. 2% in Grand Cayman, 18% in Guantanamo Bay, 12% in Havana, 51% in Grand Turk, 25% in Great Exuma, 23% on Andros Island.
I would have thought that the chance of Grand Cayman would have been 0, but that's
possibly. And 12% on New Providence, which is where the capital of the Bahamas is. 4% for tropical storm force winds in Pensacola, Florida. Chance of hurricane force winds in Florida. St. Mark's 1%, Cedar Key 2%, Tampa 3%, Venice 7%, Fort Myers 8%, Naples 11%, Key West 24%, Marathon 23%, Homestead 17%, Miami 14%, Fort Lauderdale 11%, West Palm Beach 8%, Fort Pierce 5%, Cocoa Beach 3%, Orlando 2%, Daytona Beach 1%. So the highest percent chance in Florida, obviously, in Key West, 24%, almost a 1 in 4. Do you agree with those?
Makes sense, for the most part. To the exceptions, because there's not really enough time for that. No one really cares. Just really quickly, just taking a look at the latest, which shows pretty much. Actually, never mind. It actually shows Irma curving faster.
What are we talking about here?
GFS 18Z. I'll pull it up.
Too late. I already have it up. But if showing that it turns north over Andros.
I don't actually see it. Oh, hold on, one moment. I don't see yours, Hank.
Oh, well, I think Strat stole it. Let me put it back on.
Whoops, sorry.
There we go.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, we'll have it in just a moment. Just give me a moment. Here it is.
Okay. So just going back to present. So this is presently, and it shows it moving farther north. That's key. And it shows it moving through the Bahamas and curving north faster. Whereas north over pretty much right over Andros Island, then hits Grand Bahama. Ignore the pressure, by the way. And makes landfall right on the North Carolina-South Carolina border.
Oh goodness, it's gone back to its old tricks of 2 days ago, hasn't it?
Yeah, probably that's probably a Category 3, maybe approaching 4.
Really? Well, so
Well,
it's sort of
we're not
almost doing a Hugo now.
Sort of, maybe a merge of Hugo and Hazel, I guess. But yeah, I guess, sure, or maybe even an Isabel with a little bit farther south of a tint and stronger at landfall. I don't know. It's really hard to compare the storm with any other in history because of its nature. You can also see Jose, as it was probably going to become a hurricane, and then Tropical Depression 13, which at this point is a tropical storm. And if it does become a tropical storm, it will gain the name Katia or Katia. I still don't know how to pronounce it correctly.
Pretty sure it's Katia.
Katia.
Yeah.
You said Katia. I've always said Katia ever since 2011. So.
Okay, so yeah, it shows that moving into Mexico near Veracruz, pretty close to where Franklin is, I guess, and shows Jose meandering past 7 days. So that's past 7 days.
But boy, does it meander.
Yeah, that could potentially be. In fact, it looks like it would probably just kill itself if it meanders like that because of all the upwelling it would have to deal with. Not sure where that would. Let me check the upper level pattern. That might, or maybe not the upper level pattern, just the upper level pattern. Let's see. So yeah, it's getting blocked by Irma. It's getting blocked by another trough up here, and a bridge to its east. So yeah, it's just blocked on all sides. That would make sense. Why it's not moving at all. Okay. Okay, so that's the deal with the latest PFS run. Does it develop anything else? Any chance? I don't think it would. It doesn't look like it is. So that's the deal with the latest GFS run. Or wait, hold on, actually.
Yeah?
That's just a wave.
Do we have any more news on the recon flights?
Oh yeah.
Let me go ahead and see if I can check.
Yeah, there isn't new
Mike has
info
it up.
on an iPass, but there's a second plane that's going to be going for a pass soon, the one at the top.
Yeah, that won't be going a good 30 minutes, most likely.
So they haven't found anything notable, or?
No, because they haven't done a pass through that yet.
Okay. So, questions. Is there now less of a chance of it hitting South Florida, probably after what we just saw? Well, no.
That's just one model run. There's so many out there.
Yeah.
And that's the forecast. You have to take everything as well and compare it to the rest of the model. And the rest of the model consensus shows a Florida hit. So it's not anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, we're struggling to hear you at the moment, Hank, for some reason.
Huh.
But there you can see the model spread right now. And, yeah. Very interesting. That graphic will probably update before too long as well.
Yeah, it'll be...
Well, Strat started to speak, but it seems like we lost him briefly there as well. Or maybe it was me who did. My signal seems to be fluctuating in and out sometimes as well. So, we do apologize for any hiccups, but always outside of our control, isn't it?
Seems like it.
So, we'll be waiting for the next update at the top of the hour from Force 13 SATOPS, which is the satellite measuring tool, and it will be factoring in the information provided by the recon planes. Obviously, the satellite estimates don't don't substitute the recon observations. It will just be sort of in a placeholder type thing until we get some information from recon, and I expect the National Hurricane Center will have data by the time they do their next update, which is due in just over an hour. And that'll be the intermediate advisory, by which point the storm will probably be less than 100 miles away from its first points of land, and potential for I do have my concerns here that this storm is still on track to pass directly over Barbuda. I as well, and you know, it's just, could you imagine?
No, that would be absolutely devastating.
You would think, we would hope not, of course, but there's only so much you can hope for when something like this is occurring, and still is of such a huge intensity, and still not abating in any way, shape or form. And when do you think it will pass over or near Barbuda? It's probably going to be around 10 hours or maybe a little less. Is it still moving at 14 miles per hour?
Let me check. It's 15 actually.
15. So that by that reckoning, it would be about 6.5, 7 hours then, because it'll probably be 90. Well, no, not Barbuda. About 7 or 8 hours for Barbuda. So it's going to be a long night over there. Obviously, it's already nightfall, and but by tomorrow's first light, it's going to be potentially a different scene over there. But obviously, everyone has to prepare accordingly, and hopefully they are prepared as well as humanly possible. But I do have certain concerns for Barbuda in particular here. But there we go. And Devon tells us on text that 1,600 people live there.
Wow.
It is quite a sparsely populated island compared to Antigua, if I'm not mistaken. Antigua is the principal island of Antigua and Barbuda. Barbuda, as far as I remember, is much less populated, but 1,600 apparently.
And Antigua and Barbuda combined have a population of 100,963.
Really? So 99% of them live on Antigua. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me double check it for us though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. Don't know if anyone wants to show anything on their screen right now, any different satellite imagery loops that we don't have on here right now. Would be nice.
Let me see if I can pull anything up. I can actually show the microwave imagery if you guys want to see
Well,
that.
we have for a little while, so why not? In the meantime, I'm going to try and get some new imagery here.
Yeah, this is the microwave of the past 48 hours. If you guys want me to limit it to 24, just let me know. I can do that.
Yeah, Barbuda only has a population of 1,638.
So the lion's share of the population is in Antigua.
So basically, a large majority lives on Antigua.
Yes. We're looking at that microwave imagery there, and I've been looking at the long-term floater imagery, which we don't get to look at so often here because we're looking so much at every minute by minute on the Ghost 16, and the eye is shrinking, and you can see it as well on the microwave.
It initially might be trying to go under an EWRC then.
Well, it may well happen soon.
Yeah, here's just the imagery from the past 40 hours. You can see the eyes initially gets larger, and then it starts shrinking again near the end.
At the moment, I'm just doing preparations for the next hour and where exactly the storm is located, but drawing ever nearer, and tropical storm force winds will already be occurring on 3 of those islands: Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda, and possibly Montserrat as well at this point. maybe. If not, it will be in the next hour. And hurricane force winds will probably occur there soon as well. And I have to say that it looks like the eye wall has closed up as well again. So it looks like to me that it's still intensifying here. And we'll wait on recon to confirm that.
Yeah, once we get off of this, I will, once you find other imagery to get onto, or we can talk about something else, I will turn off my screen share and I'll pay attention to recon to see when the new updates come in.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. I'm just about to update the page, so I'll let you know if there's any updates. I'll just hold on a second while it's loading, because the site's like being really slow, because obviously so many people looking at it. Latest still has a few more minutes to go. Probably be there in maybe 10-20 minutes from now. But so far they've recorded a peak wind of 50 miles per hour, 50 knots out in the outer bands. Because they haven't gotten in the CDO quite yet.
I think that's the latest floater imagery that we're showing. And you can take a look at some other stuff now, Strat, there. I'm trying to get this imagery on here, and that's the latest floater imagery.
And of course, I forget there's a NOAA mission like going straight into the eye, and that one just updated, and it has their highest wind so far in this second pass is 64 knots, flight level. This is a NOAA mission.
And the original plane NOAA 2 is going in for a pass of the southwest and northeast eye wall, so this will be the best indicator for us to see what the current full intensity of the storm is.
Yeah.
So that should be 20 minutes or so until we get that data in for us.
Just spamming the refresh button.
I think it refreshed, actually.
Let's see. Not on my end just yet.
And some people are asking, like they're talking about in the chat, what happens when an eye wall replacement cycle occurs. So does anyone want to explain what happens with the wind field and the strength and stuff?
Basically what happens is, in most cases, it weakens the storm a little bit. Not by a lot, but just a little bit, obviously, since it's going under an eye wall replacement cycle. And it'll, basically what that means is that it's when the inner eye of the storm kind of gets, I guess, cut off from the developing outer eye wall, and it goes in. It starts pushing on into the center of the eye when the middle one starts, getting cut off, and then it starts dying, and it could have an impact on the total area of hurricane force winds. It could, increase the storm size, or it could be the same size. We'll just have to find out. And
yeah, sorry to interrupt. The recon update came in. They did actually measure some Category 5 winds on the southwest eye wall side.
Yeah, because it's closed up again, and it's got. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's going to be going through its pass for the northeast eye wall now. So in 10 minutes, that data will pop up for us.
I want to see what they've got at the due north position, because that's where the strongest cloud tops are right now, and it really looks good.
So far, flight level pressure looks to be 914.3 so far.
And someone asked, how fast is this, what's the strength of the storm and where are we getting our information from? Well, the storm, according to the National Hurricane Center, that's where we get some of our data from. We also get it from recon data and such. Current update from the National Hurricane Center says 185-mile-an-hour winds.
And it's moving due west at 14.
15.
Last I heard.
I've been plotting its track in the last few hours whilst we've been on air, pretty much, and in the last 5 hours it's moved 60 miles, and it's moved pretty much west northwest. I'm not sure if I can get the bearing heading there, but it looks to me something like 290 degrees.
So it started to move west northwest now instead of just west.
So 60 miles in 5 hours, that's what?
Roughly.
I wasn't a math guy.
So. Yeah, 12 miles an hour.
12 miles an hour. So that's how it's been doing in the last 5 hours.
I think a recon updates every 5 minutes or so, so that's why a little bit. But like I said, so far flight level pressure is they recorded is 914.3 millibars.
But that's not on the ground, correct?
Yeah, that's
No,
flight level. This is a NOAA mission.
Yeah, sorry if I was interrupting. The previous drop zone said 920 millibars.
Indeed. I think they'll get lower.
The 8 p.m. advisory just came out, I think, and oh, not the 8 p.m. Going back to the 5 p.m. I did a little mistake there. Instead of moving west due west at 14, it's actually moving west at 15.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, and a second plane, AF-305, is going for a pass from the northwest to southeast eyewalls right now as well. It'll probably take another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I was looking at that one too.
But as soon as we get the information, it'll be relayed right to you guys.
Yeah. I might have to go in a bit to do some homework, but I'll stay as long as I can.
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, just type it in chat. I've been looking at the chat for the past, 3 hours or so. So any questions, I'll try to answer.
And still waiting for the recon update. Like I said, I believe it updates once every 5 minutes or so, sometimes faster, depending on how fast the plane's moving.
And at the top of the hour, SATOPS comes in as well, so we'll have a fresh batch of information for everyone.
Yep.
And I see people talking about prep in chat. If you're doing prep, especially if you're in Puerto Rico and stuff, your prep should already be done.
It's
at this
pretty
point.
much. It's pretty much too late to be doing preparations right now. We're pretty much coming close to the point where if you're still doing prep right now, you could have the chance of endangering your life now.
You know it's getting late when you're on the floater image. Federico is on the floater imagery, and you know it's getting close when that happens.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of people don't get ready to the last minute, so there's going to be gigantic lines as well. So if you're going, you might as well just hunker down, because by the time you get all the stuff you need, it's going to be too late for you to get back, potentially.
And if you're not able to go to a shelter, and if you're going to be experiencing an eye wall that eye, and if you have a wooden house, those are probably most likely going to be either nearly gone or completely gone. So the best place to be during this is in a interior-most part of your house, away from windows. Then you'll probably want to drag over a that'll probably be a closet or bathroom, and you'd probably want to drag over a bed, like a bed frame or a bed over you to protect you from the damage, and maybe some blankets and pillows as well too, for extra protection.
And make sure to board up windows as well, because the air pressure difference if window breaks can actually take down walls and stuff.
Now guys, I don't know if you're able to see what's on the stream right now, but we're showing some more infrared imagery of...
You cut off for a second.
You cut out.
But we're showing more infrared imagery of Irma on the stream right now, if you're able to see it, guys. And
oh, yes,
I am rather bowled over what we're seeing on it right now.
And Strat, you gotta, just to go off your thing, you gotta remember this, there's already tropical storm force conditions being reported there, so if you're gonna be boarding up windows, it's pretty much nearly too late to do.
Absolutely, and you know, I mean, also, we had about 5 days warning for this, really.
Yeah.
Also, I saw in chat, someone asked what was causing Irma to go through so many eyewall replacement cycles. Do one of you guys want to answer that?
It was earlier why I kept going between a Category 2 and Category 3. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not Hank here, so I don't know as much as he does. But I believe it's because the atmosphere wasn't really able to sustain, above I think Category 3 intensity storms. So it kept, I guess you could say, capping the atmosphere, and it couldn't really intensify more. So I believe that's why it went through so many eyewall replacement cycles. Again, I'm not Hank or anything, so if you were to come on here later on, you'll probably explain it in better detail than I am.
If Recon wasn't in the storm right now, I'd be calling this even stronger than what they're saying. But
Yeah,
we're about to find out definitively from them in the next hour.
Yeah, it looks like the western eyewall is showing up even more now, at least in the latest info from Ghost 16.
Absolutely.
And it's still actually moving into an area of more favorable ocean heat content as well. I'll see if I can find some images of that, but as it moves towards the northern Caribbean and stuff and right over it, there's more ocean heat content to move around with there.
And sea surface temperatures as a whole are increasing all the way.
Yeah, and to expand off that, I believe also where it's at right now, or about where it's gonna go, it's gonna head into 30 or 29 Celsius waters, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I checked.
All right.
Which is pretty sustainable.
Well, we're going to take a break here for a few minutes. We'll be back with more and the latest satellite observations from Force 13 at the top of the hour. We're coming up to midnight here in the UK, coming up to 11 PM UTC, and on these islands the time must be coming up to, what, 7 o'clock? Something like that?
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
Alright, well, we'll have more shortly, and the storm continues to draw ever nearer. The last 100 miles coming up.
Our live coverage continues in a moment.
You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.co.uk, at your service at any time. You can also find us on YouTube, the channel, search Force 13, all in text, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also find us on Facebook at Force 13, and it's at Force 13 on Twitter, that's the handle to contact us there. You can also add Fool 13 on Skype, that's FW.